This is History for Cocktail Parties with hack historians Thornton Kennedy and James Ottley.
Welcome to History for Cocktail Parties. My name is Thornton Kennedy.
And I'm James Ottley.
And this is our 1-year anniversary show. And today we're not going to do a deep dive on a single topic. Instead, we're going to go back over some of the episodes that we did in the past and introduce some of the information that ended up on the cutting room floor. And James, I know this was a big one for you, especially with the Panama Canal.
Yeah, that's right.
That was a dense episode, and yet we still left a ton of information out.
We sure did. How many episodes do we do on that? Like 7?
7 episodes.
Yeah.
And there was still more information that needed to be put in.
It was quite a journey for sure.
And the stories are fascinating.
Indeed.
And when we were doing the REM episode, as such a huge fan, I had additional information that I wanted to add in, but just didn't fit.
Yeah.
One of my, those Atlanta history stories about Martin Luther King Jr. that just didn't fit with that episode that I'm excited to talk about on today's show.
I can't wait to hear it today.
As we get started here, our signature cocktail, what do you think it's going to be?
I see it.
It is a glass of champagne. I'm going to open it on air to see if we can catch the effect. I've already taken the little wire topper off.
I'm ducking. I'm waiting. There you go.
Hey,
well done.
It actually worked. I'm going to pour it. Oh, shit. You have to be careful with champagne, folks.
You're not going to pour me one. Maybe I'll pour myself one.
Yeah, pour yourself one. That's the way to do that. Before we get started with our episode, I do want to say a quick word about one of our partners, Play. History is full of lessons learned, and one of the big ones is that those who don't take action get run over by those who do. Play is a full-service ad agency that helps brands find their spark or reignite it. Their team of creative players turns bold ideas into action with smart strategy, design, and digital know-how, helping new businesses launch strong and established ones move forward with fresh energy. Ready to grow your business? Get a free marketing consultation today at goplaydesign.com. That's goplaydesign.com.
We really appreciate their support.
And I continue to put players in air quotes as if the people who are listening to the podcast can see me.
I noticed
with
that.
My quotes. It's only for you, James.
Right.
All right. So, James, where are we going to start on today's episode?
Oh, man. Let's go back to the Panama Canal. One of the things that I thought was just fascinating, but really didn't get to include was kind of the history of how they discovered that mosquitoes were the carrier and the cause of malaria and yellow fever.
Talk about what really ended France's efforts was the amount of death that
tens and thousands of people being killed
because of yellow fever in the area.
Right, exactly.
And they thought it was because of digging in the dirt. As I said on that episode, malaria, bad air.
Exactly.
They had no idea it was mosquitoes.
No clue. And one of the major reasons that the Americans were able to complete the canal was because they were able to get malaria and yellow fever under control. And so, I mean, even when they started, it was not accepted medical knowledge that it was the mosquito that was the culprit. They, like you said, they thought it was bad air or unclean living or combination of those two things.
Yes.
Yeah.
You morally. You were corrupt.
Exactly.
That's why you expired building the canal.
Right. And, so anyway, it took 4 different doctors in 4 different parts of the world to realize and discover that it was the mosquito that was the cause of these 2 diseases. Without getting too deep into the weeds yet, there are over 2,500 types of mosquitoes or different species.
Please tell me you're going to talk about all 2,500 species.
No, I'm not.
Guys, y'all should see the pile of papers in front of James.
They'll go quickly. There are 3 genera or genuses. One is the Culex, which is what we have up here in North America. The Anopheles, which was the malaria-carrying mosquito, and the Aedes mosquito, the Aedes aegypti. They called it. It's also known as a Stegomyia fasciata, and that's the yellow fever mosquito. And what they discovered, one of the mysteries was, somebody could get yellow fever, and everyone around them was fine for like 2 or 3 weeks, and so this was a big mystery to them. One of this one in particular.
So just to follow that thread, you would get bitten by a mosquito, and have no symptoms.
Well, no, you would
for
get
weeks.
it. You would get it. But other people around you, I mean, in the same cabin, the same house, the same ship, if you were aboard a ship, they would not get it.
Oh,
that
okay.
just seemed, they couldn't figure that out.
Right, for a disease that traveled by air.
Right.
That wouldn't make any sense.
Yeah. And so, you'd be right by a sick patient, but you'd be fine.
Interesting.
And so the stegomyia transmits this yellow fever, this fever parasite, only according to a very particular time pattern. The development of the parasite within the insect requires what's known as extrinsic incubation, outside incubation, not in the body. And so it would suck your blood, and the yellow fever patient it has to suck the blood of the yellow fever patient within 3 days.
Right.
Okay. And then after they've contracted the disease, and then it takes another 10 or 12 days before a mosquito can transmit the infection. And so again, you can be around a yellow fever patient for 10 or 12 days and, would not be at risk at all. And it was actually Dr. Walter Reed, the same Walter Reed that the famous military medical center is named for, that really kind of closed the case experimentally that the mosquito, after an incubation period, was the spreader of yellow fever and malaria. And he actually also gathered critical information about these two types of mosquitoes, which helped the Americans ultimately rid the canal zone of yellow fever and greatly almost rid it of malaria. One of the important things he discovered was that the yellow fever mosquito is a creature of human society. It's kind of like the rat. It survives by living close to human beings. So catch this. Like all mosquitoes, it's only the female that bites.
Of course.
I was going to give a dramatic pause there. Exactly. And it's only the female that feeds on blood. No kidding. And so the male feeds on liquids like fruit juices and other things like that, and its bite is quite harmless.
I'm going to withhold comment through this entire section.
Yeah, I know, and I could put a joke. I'm the one that's divorced. I'll let you make the joke if there's one to be made there. But anyway, so the blood for the female is essential for the eggs to mature. It can feed on any animal's blood, but its preference is for human blood, kind of Dracula, mosquito. Whole life cycle must be maintained in close proximity to human society, so they can get this human blood. But the next part was really the key to getting rid of this type of mosquito. All mosquitoes lay their eggs in water, but the yellow fever mosquito is extremely particular about where it lays its eggs. The water has to be located near and like in an actual container, not like a wagon rut or a ditch in the road. They'll only deposit their eggs there, and only deposit, in a building that's occupied by humans or near a building that's occupied by humans. They know. And and also the water must be very clean. So they're very particular about where they drop their eggs. So the task, was to eliminate every possible opportunity for the female stegomyia to deposit her eggs. And they did this by ridding the cities of standing fresh water, sealing these off with a lid or putting a skim of oil, a kerosene on the top, because this would kill the larvae, which need oxygen to survive. And it also would prohibit the female mosquito from, putting them in that dirty, oily water in the first place. So they went door to door, they fumigated, cover all the cisterns. They had a job ahead of them because this mosquito lays anywhere from 35 to 120 eggs every 3 to 5 days.
Wow.
Yeah. And it's basically after every blood meal. And so they, and then these eggs mature in 10 days. So they had a big task ahead of them, but, they went, they fumigated, they covered all the water, got rid of all the standing water. And so they were able to get rid of the larvae in the cisterns and get rid of the, these places where the mosquito would deposit her eggs. So get rid of all the new mosquitoes. And then they had the benefit that a mosquito only lives for 3 or 4 weeks.
Right.
So after they did that, and also another benefit, this particular type of mosquito has a limited flight range. So there weren't that many new ones that would fly in from the jungle once they got the cities cleared.
Right.
Now the Anopheles mosquito, whole different scenario. This is the malaria mosquito, right? Completely different. it does, it does not care where it drops its eggs. It'll put it in still water of any kind, swamp, a ditch, wagon rut, whatever. And so you can imagine how many swamps and bogs and ruts and everything there were in Panama.
And on a construction site.
Exactly. And so malaria, it was what killed the most workers, more than yellow fever, during the French occupation. And it would attack a human at any time. The other types of mosquitoes would generally attack at night. This one would bite at any time. Female required a meal of blood every 2 to 3 nights. And the other thing that was really kind of dangerous was you didn't know if you'd been bitten. It doesn't really itch.
Swelling.
Yeah, it doesn't really itch, apparently. A lot of people didn't even know, and then they contract malaria. So finally, Gorgas, who you talked about in the episode. I
was going to say he followed Walter Reed.
Yeah, he is able to convince the powers that be to give him 4,000 workers to go out and fumigate. They get to it. They cover all the cisterns, and they are able to eradicate yellow fever from Panama in about a year and a half.
That's so crazy.
Yeah, but the task of getting rid of the malaria mosquito was a lot harder, and they still didn't get rid of.
They could go wherever they wanted.
Absolutely, and they were everywhere. They did find out that they are susceptible to wind and they need shade, and so they just went out and they burned all this brush, cleared all of this area, so they didn't want to have any areas that the mosquito could have shade or a place to get out of the sun or wind. And so all of these new towns that they built along the canal were all out in the open.
Interesting.
They all had screens.
Right.
And the problem was, of course, that the new mosquitoes were always in the jungle, not just a stone's throw away. And even today, there's still malaria mosquitoes in Panama, in some parts of Panama, not the cities.
Right. There's no way to eradicate.
There's no way to totally eradicate them. And so actually, in 2023, there were thousands of malaria cases still, and they even had some deaths from malaria in 2025. But again, they say that there's little or no risk in the cities and populated areas. It's only if you go out into the jungle. But I just thought it was fascinating that there's this time pattern and this incubation period and that kind of thing, and they didn't know. They knew it existed, but they didn't know that incubation period was happening inside of a mosquito's gut.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Isn't that
I
wild?
had no idea.
Yeah.
And I'm willing to bet that because we increased the food supply.
Yes.
I mean, we put so many people in an arid jungle region.
Right.
And it was just like a buffet.
Absolutely. That was one of what Gorgas was really trying to get. He knew all these new workers were coming in, and that's just like, this is going to be an a true pandemic like you've never seen before.
There's no question, and David McCullough says this in The Path Between the Seas, that discovery single-handedly is what allowed the Panama Canal to be built.
100%.
It was not engineering. It was not technology. It was good old-fashioned scientific discovery and solution.
Absolutely.
Great story.
Appreciate it.
All right, now on to the Great Locomotive Chase follow-up.
The Great Locomotive Chase, and a story that...
The other Great Locomotive Chase.
Yeah, that almost, it could take the title as the Great Locomotive Chase.
The greatest.
The Greatest Locomotive Chase. This is where a U.S. or Union Navy ship is chasing a Confederate train. Yeah.
A ship?
Yeah.
Wow, a boat.
Yeah,
chasing
exactly.
A train.
That's right.
Did it happen on the Panama Canal?
Did not happen on the Panama Canal. Did not. But pretty amazing story. Early in the Civil War, there was the naval blockade, the Anaconda plant that you know about, and the U.S. Navy determined that their deep water resupply or coastal supply stations were too far apart to support its blockading ships. And so they decided to go ahead and take Hilton Head, or what was called Port Royal Sound at that point, to have a supply station there. They completed that in November of 1861, and their next objective was Fernandina, Florida. There was a Port Fernandina on Amelia Island, which a lot of us have gone to.
Know it well.
And so Fernandina was also the eastern terminus of the railroad that crossed Florida over to Cedar Keys on the Gulf. And I actually sent you a couple of pictures that are on your phone if you want to look at this.
They
and I'm going
through today.
And I'm going to put them up on our social media as well. But the on the north end of Amelia Island is Fort Clinch, and it's still there. You can visit it. It was a Union or an American, fort before the Civil War, and then the Civil War started, went into Confederate hands, and the Union Navy thought they were going to have a fight on their hands at Fort Clinch because it guarded the sound there. Well, General Lee had determined Fort Clinch could be abandoned. It wasn't worth defending. And so the Confederate garrison that was there, when they heard the Union was coming, they abandoned the fort and made their way into Fernandina to evacuate by train. And so the Union Navy comes in, they take the fort, they realize it's been abandoned, they, raise the flag of the fort, and they, take their gunboats down the Amelia River towards the actual town of Fernandina. No resistance, and they get there. And because they did not damage the town and they just took it, they took the port very easily, some of the residents tipped them off that the Confederate garrison, these soldiers were still there. They were boarding the train at that very moment at the depot to evacuate and, get out of Dodge. And the story goes that the local sheriff apparently yelled out to one of the gunboats. It was actually Commodore Stevens on the Ottawa gunboat, and said, "Hey, the Confederates are actually at the depot right now. You can see it. The train that you can see from your gunboat is right there. They're trying to get away, and just letting you know." And so the Commodore Stevens says, "Well, hell yeah." And so he steams up his ship, and they start heading towards the railroad depot, which you'll see on the pictures is on the wharf.
Wow.
So, and so he guides the Ottawa over there. And the Ottawa, it's a gunboat. It's got a shallow draft, so it's got no problem going up these rivers. And another kind of nugget, it was one of these boats they called a 90-day gunboat because they'd build them in 90 days because they needed to have a whole lot more boats to make this blockade work. So Ottawa is steaming towards the depot. And, of course, the Confederates, they can't help themselves, and they draw the Ottawa's attention by firing at it with their muskets out the window of the train before it even leaves the station.
You Yankee sons of bees.
Exactly. So so they're firing their guns. Stupid move.
At a ship.
So a train conductor sees what's going on. He fires up the two locomotives, gives it full steam, and jerks the train out of the station. Musket fire doesn't even reach the Ottawa, but the Ottawa fires back, and it's firing with its 11-inch cannons. It's definitely that we're screwing around. What's the term? Mess around and find out, something like that.
And find out.
And somehow Stevens signals the train to stop, which it doesn't. So now he's in hot pursuit, and you can see on the picture that it is possible. These train tracks are kind of parallel to the river for a while. So the Ottawa, keeps firing. It's chasing this train up the river, and they do kill. They land one shell on one of the flatbed cars and kill two of the soldiers that were on it, and but the train doesn't stop. So they're still going, and of course the Confederates are hooting and jeering and throwing handkerchiefs out the window, and they're giving them the finger and everything else. Maybe can you picture it? It's almost like a Monty Python,
honestly,
movie. Just like the Great Locomotive Chase, the train cuts loose a couple of cars to try and go faster, and also just like the Great Locomotive Chase, they got to get to this bridge to get away. The bridge to the mainland.
To the mainland.
Yeah, exactly.
Along the canal.
And but unlike our Great Locomotive Chase, this train actually makes it to the bridge and gets away. But when you look at the picture, had the Ottawa gotten there at the same time, the train would have been broadside. They could have absolutely blown it off the bridge and into the water. And so basically that was the first time, maybe the only time in history that a ship chased a train. And
I'm willing to bet that you've got a patent on that. There's nowhere else that a gunship has chased a train.
Exactly. So possibly it takes the title for the Great Locomotive Chase.
I think so.
Possibly.
And jumping from 1860 to 1960, my personal favorite episode was the manhunt for Martin Luther King Jr.'s assassin.
Those are great series of episodes.
It was just absolutely riveting. I love the old-fashioned detective work.
Yeah, absolutely.
The fact that it was, a tag in a dry cleaning garment.
Right.
It was the, inside the car where it had been serviced. It was,
Right.
5 countries looking at fingerprints and how the fingerprints are determined.
Right.
Looking
Yes.
at photographs. It's just such an incredible story.
It was really cool.
And I have this other Martin Luther King story, being in Atlanta. It's one of the more profound stories about the history of Atlanta, but it tied in no way, shape, or form
Into the episode. I've got one like that too.
It's frustrating. So you're like, I would love to tell this story,
But there's no segue.
But in 1964, the biggest company in Atlanta, Coca-Cola, threatened to leave the city because city leaders would not get behind Martin Luther King, or an effort to honor Martin Luther King Jr. after he was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize.
Gotcha.
So it was in 1964, the Nobel Peace Committee awards Martin Luther King Atlanta. He's an Atlantan. He was born and raised here. His father is the pastor of Ebenezer
Would have been
Baptist
a huge insult not to.
It's a huge event.
Yeah.
Coretta Scott and Martin Luther get on a plane. They fly to Norway on December 10th. There's this big event. And it is literally front page news around the world. And the committee said he is the first person in the Western world to have shown us that a struggle can be waged without violence. He has brought this message to all men, to all nations, and all races.
Yeah.
And so King gets up there and he makes this eloquent speech. He dedicates the award to the civil rights movement, and he pledges the money, the prize money, which is about $500,000 in today's value, to civil rights causes. I mean, a home run.
Yeah.
So a few progressive Atlanta citizens get together and they say, we've got to do something to honor our
Atlanta's own
in this international award. And it's Atlanta's Catholic Archbishop. It's Rabbi Jacob Rothschild of the Temple. And it's the Atlanta Constitution publisher, Ralph McGill, among others. Mm-hmm. These invitations go out. They're going to have this dinner in January 1965 to honor King. And it goes well. A lot of people respond positively, but Atlanta's business community just stays on the sidelines.
Crickets.
So Ivan Allen, who is the mayor at the time, and Ivan Allen's an interesting character in this because he was not just a politician. He was also the president and CEO of Ivan Allen Company. Huge office supply company. So he had been the president of the Metro Atlanta Chamber of Commerce, as had his father. So he was a huge business leader. He also calls on the former mayor, William B. Hartsfield, and these guys are going to go out and just drum up support and get people to attend this dinner. But again, crickets. Does not respond. In fact, a prominent banker is on another telephone calling all the same people and telling them not to go to the dinner.
Come on. Wow.
There's a front page article in the New York Times with the headline, Dinner for Martin Luther King Disputed in Atlanta.
Yeah.
Now, Atlanta had just spent millions of dollars, and I did not know this, on the City Too Busy to Hate campaign.
Yeah.
I just thought the City Too Busy to Hate was kind of this motto. They actually spent real money.
Like a Ford Atlanta campaign.
Correct.
Yeah. Across the country.
And all of a sudden you had this international newspaper calling the city business leaders out. So
yeah. How embarrassing.
Embarrassing. And Ivan Allen goes out to Itchaway Plantation to see the biggest name in Atlanta business.
The dean of businessmen.
Robert Woodruff,
right,
who is the president of Coca-Cola at that time. He was, they passed the CEO responsibilities on him. To get to that in just a minute. And Woodruff agrees. Mm-hmm. This is embarrassing. Yeah. We need to fix this. So Woodruff calls on his CEO, Paul Austin, and he says, you need to fix this. Yeah. Now, Paul Austin's a fascinating character.
I didn't realize Paul Austin was president at that time.
He was the CEO.
Or CEO at that time.
CEO. Yeah. And so Austin, from LaGrange, Georgia, but spent 14 years in South Africa. So he knew apartheid.
Yeah. Saw it firsthand.
Yeah. And he calls all of these business leaders, all the people who you would want in that room, to a lunch, and he drops the mic. Mm-hmm. He says, It's embarrassing for Coca-Cola to be located in a city that refuses to honor its Nobel Prize winner.
Yeah.
We are an international business. The Coca-Cola company does not need Atlanta. You all need to decide whether Atlanta needs the Coca-Cola company.
Wow.
Right?
Holy cow. I had never heard that, Thornton.
Yeah. He was you either get behind this or lose your marquee business. And of course, going back to Woodruff, he had grown the company from a regional soft drink company into a global power.
Yeah.
Coca-Cola was available around the world by 1964. The end result is the 1,500 tickets sell out overnight. Atlanta's business community comes out in droves. It's the first time many of those men had had dinner with someone of the opposite race.
Yeah.
And it kind of branded Atlanta really as the city too busy to hate. Now, as you said, not many people know that there was this big threat behind that dinner. So
I didn't know that.
It's not quite the city too busy to hate.
This is a lot less significant, but also relates to that series of episodes on the FBI manhunt. I was reading another book. I was reading a book on Lee Iacocca, who's the father of the Mustang, and you mentioned
Ford Motor Company.
That's right. And as we covered in the episode, the white Ford Mustang was really the key to the whole thing.
Most popular car in America at the time, which I had no idea.
Yeah, it was. It absolutely was. And it was essential to solving the case, which we talked about in the episode and which you mentioned just now. My thing, this is not really relevant, wasn't really relevant to our story, but in reading this
fascinating
book,
story.
I thought it was kind of interesting. It's worth throwing in on this episode, right, of the recap. So they had several names that they were considering for the Mustang before they came up with the Mustang. They were going to call it the Special Falcon or the Monte Carlo, the Monaco, the Torino, or even the Cougar. And
haven't almost all those names been used?
They have,
since.
Well, the Monte Carlo and the Monaco, those actually were already taken. They had been reserved by General.
There was a Gran Torino.
That was a Ford product as well, but I guess a little bit later on. And they settled on the Torino, which happened to be the Italian spelling of the industrial city of Turin in Italy. And it was kind of in keeping with the vaguely foreign flavor that they had, worked hard. They were trying to input into the Mustang. You think it's kind of funny that we look at the Mustang now as quintessentially American.
So American.
But at the time, the styling had a little bit of a European flair to it.
Well, and if I can plug the best movie, probably my top 5, Ford versus Ferrari.
Great movie for sure. Indeed. But so they were going with the Torino, again, kind of based on the Turin name in Italy. And they got a call from, I guess, their PR guys and said, look, you can't use this name. They're, well, why not? That's what we. And they explained that Henry Ford, too, was in the midst of a divorce and was having an affair, or at least keeping company with an Italian jet-setting divorcee. And they had met at a party in Paris, and some, I guess the PR firm or whatnot, or some of Henry Ford II's underlings were saying, this just wouldn't look good for you to name this car after an Italian, have anything to do with Italy or any type of Italian flair, since he's, dating this Italian lady.
Literally about to be in the Italian press.
Right. And so they changed the name. They ended up going with Mustang.
Wow.
But the original name of the car was going to be Torino, but because of this affair or this jet setting,
I love the idea. And I pictured this in my head of Henry Ford having no idea this was going on.
Yeah.
Everybody just tiptoeing around and being like, "No, do not walk into his office with that. He'll say yes."
Yeah.
And then we'll have egg all over our face.
Exactly.
So we need to change this before it hits the chairman's desk.
Exactly. And interestingly, the Mustang originally it wasn't based on the horse. It was the Mustang, the aircraft in World War II.
Wow.
Yeah.
That just broke my brain.
Yeah, isn't that wild? So anyway, they did go with the Mustang and the name Mustang, and they did go, of course, with the logo, the horse, on the front of the car, galloping. And Lee Iacocca said, everybody still, ever since they put that on the front of the car, loved to point out to him that the emblem, the horse, was facing the wrong way. that
so it should be running with the car. And it's running.
Well, it was galloping in a clockwise direction instead of counterclockwise, and racehorses on American racetracks run in a counterclockwise way, direction.
I'm actually pulling this up on my computer because this is so bizarre.
Yeah, and so his answer to it was, as he was giving them the finger, he said, "Look, the Mustang has always been a wild horse, not a domesticated racer." And so I did it intentionally. So
You're
when you
absolutely right, it is going if you were looking at a racetrack, it's going backwards.
Yeah, exactly. So fascinating, right? I mean, it's the kind of stuff I just love. Now, it did not relate to our episode, but I think
way, shape, or form.
Exactly. But I think it's perfect for this recap episode.
And if you have someone make that big of a blunder on your inventory and you need to claim a loss, you probably need an insurance company, right?
Or if you need somebody to point you in the right direction.
I actually like that a little bit better. You would hire Sterling Seacrest Pritchard, one of our partners. Sterling Seacrest Pritchard is one of the Southeast's largest privately held insurance brokers and quite possibly the only agency brave enough to tackle everything from construction mishaps to healthcare misadventures, logistics disasters, real estate whoopsies, and even ransom notes from hackers who apparently have never heard of two-factor authentication. When it comes to your home, your business, and all the weirdness life can throw your way, SSP has you covered, usually before you even realize you need it. For a friendly guide through, wait, that can happen? To, do I need a lawyer? Call 678-424-6503 or visit sspins.com. That's sspins.com. Thank you, Sterling Seacrest Pritchard, and thank you, James, for pouring that drink.
I took that commercial break to provide you with a second.
There you go. And so back to our program. I'm going to talk about Charleston, which was another one of my favorite episodes. I mean, all of our episodes are my favorite episodes because we do a lot of work to pull them together. So it really does tattoo on your mind. But I spend so much time in Charleston, and I just love that city.
It's a beautiful city,
and it has so much history,
which we have hoped to set forth a little bit and educate our listeners on, history of Charleston.
History of Charleston. So, based on the Charleston episode, the What If.
Yeah, this was pretty wild. This was something that
I'd never heard this before until you sent me these notes.
It's crazy.
It's crazy.
Absolutely crazy.
And the fact that it's still dangling out there?
I think so.
Yeah.
All right. So without further ado, there was actually a peace convention. This was after several of the southern states had seceded, but before Fort Sumter, before hostilities actually began. Peace convention went from February 4th to February 27th in 1861. It was held in Washington, D.C. 21 states sent delegates. There were 131 delegates total. And Lincoln, actually, when he got to Washington as a president-elect before the inauguration, he invited these delegates of the peace convention to a reception at his hotel. He supported this idea. And this peace convention actually approved a proposed 13th Amendment to the Constitution to be submitted to Congress for a vote. And basically it was a repeat of the Compromise of 1850. So it didn't really solve anything, but it was an attempt to at least try and, stall or keep civil war from breaking out, and maybe get the states that had seceded to come back in the Union. And in fact, even during this process, again, Lincoln met with him again and said that, actually met with a delegate from Virginia and said that, look, if Virginia would stay in the Union, I'll withdraw troops from Sumter,
Wow.
So the peace convention, did some work and met with obviously important people. And believe it or not, an amendment based on the amendment that was proposed by the Peace Convention was put before Congress. The House approved it, 133-65. The Senate approved it, 24-12. And Lincoln forwarded it to the proposed amendment to all the state governors. This was the original 13th Amendment.
Wow.
He didn't endorse it and he didn't denounce it. He just sent it on. And a few of the states actually ratified it.
What?
Yeah. And so it is known as the Shadow or the Ghost Amendment, and apparently it's still out there.
Wow.
Approved but unratified, theoretically still open to vote by the states. Obviously,
it's very awkward if there was another 13th.
I mean, there never will be, but the fact that there's still this amendment that's hanging out there just seems so weird. And the fact that there was a peace convention, I never really knew that either.
Heard that.
Isn't that wild?
That is wild.
Yeah.
I love that story.
And I told it in less than 2 minutes.
That is remarkable. I am not going to be able to tell my next story in less than 2 minutes because it's about my favorite subject, REM. And we just cut a little promo because the sound on the REM episodes isn't great, but we did a lot of work on it, and it's a lot of great information about the founding of this band. And there's this character who is like the Forrest Gump of music, who pops up in the REM story, and his name is Jeremy Ayers. And he is just a fascinating character. We mentioned him in the episode, but I really want to go a little bit further with his story because Jeremy Ayers ties Andy Warhol, who was the most famous artist in the world probably in the world at the time, with Athens, Georgia.
Let's hear it.
It's such a fascinating story to me. So we know that REM is huge fans of Velvet Underground.
Yes.
If you listen to REM, you know that they recorded Pale Blue Eyes, Femme Fatale. They have a ton of Velvet Underground covers. You also know that Velvet Underground was the house band for The Factory, Andy Warhol's avant-garde studio, which had filmmakers and creatives and all these folks, and that Andy Warhol managed the Velvet Underground. And
I did not know that.
The famous banana peel cover, right? That's an Andy Warhol painting. So there's a lot of synergy between the Velvet Underground and Andy Warhol and REM that all fit together. But the story that we don't know is that there was this young man from Athens, Georgia in 1970s. His father was a chaplain at University of Georgia. He was a religious professor, and this was Jeremy Ayers' dad. Jeremy ends up moving to New York. He falls in with Andy Warhol. He becomes part of what is called Andy Warhol's superstars. And these are kind of those people that are in his entourage.
Sure.
They're all kind of creative, misfits, very provocative.
Right.
And he becomes a drag person. I don't want to say a drag queen because he, wore the makeup, wore women's clothing, but he was very much androgynous. He was not defined. This is Jeremy Ayers I'm talking about.
Right.
And he's in a documentary on Andy Warhol. This kid from Athens, Georgia makes this
makes the cut to be in his entourage.
Big deal. And he, as Andy Warhol turns his attention to celebrity. So at some point, Andy Warhol stops hanging out with the creatives and starts getting interested in people who are famous.
Okay.
And at that point, Jeremy Ayers does something fascinating. He just moves back to Athens.
Okay.
And doesn't talk about what happened in New York at all.
Really?
He just puts that in the rear view and moves forward.
Okay.
Turns out he had gone to high school with members of the B-52s.
Okay.
He brings that thrift store aesthetic back to Athens.
Yeah.
And they, pick up on Jeremy's style. They kind of dress like him. And he, sort of influenced. He writes a song for the B-52s called 52 Girls. It's on their first album.
No kidding.
Jeremy Ayers ends up dating Michael Stipe.
No kidding.
Yeah. And at this point, he had put the drag persona away.
Okay.
And he was dressing in what writers refer to as the scarecrow look.
Okay.
Which was sort of Oxford shirts and suit pants, kind of baggy, but that was Michael Stipe's aesthetic. That's what Michael Stipe dressed as in the early days of REM.
Very cool.
So it's interesting to me that Andy Warhol goes on to influence the art world. And I think we can argue that he's probably the most influential artist of the last, 50 years?
For
something like that. But very quietly, this superstar kid that moved up there in the 1970s and came back to Athens influences
the B-52s, which were the first ones.
Influences REM. Influences another band called Pylon.
And
ends up, honestly, changing the trajectory of rock and roll.
Right. Right.
And we've said REM is the greatest alternative band
Of all time.
of all time. Butterfly flapping its wings.
Yeah, for sure.
That changes history.
Well, and I would focus also on the fact that, I mean, as we covered, the B-52s were the ones that really took off and put Athens, Georgia on the map originally. They were the ones that made it, really established Athens, for everyone else to follow in their wake.
100%.
And if he is influencing them, writing music for them.
And taking them to New York, introducing them to Andy Warhol, he opened a lot of doors for them.
I mean, he could be possibly credited with starting the whole thing, the whole movement.
I think it's absolutely fascinating story.
There's a Jeremy Ayers highway, actually, or a road that's named after him or dedicated to him. Yeah, it's near Isla, Georgia, kind of north of Commerce.
That's really cool.
A friend of mine has a shooting range that's up there, and I was driving to that and ended up on the Jeremy Ayers highway. I thought
that is fascinating.
I remembered it from, our episode and talking about REM, but I had no idea the amount of influence that he had. That's fascinating.
And you talked about Michael Stipe carrying his art supplies in a Munster's lunchbox.
Yeah.
That was very much a Jeremy Ayers kind of thing he would do. He was very artsy and just sort of pushing the boundaries. Very influential.
Probably spent some time up at Howard Finster's Paradise Gardens.
Most likely.
Yeah, for sure.
And you've got the crazy story of the Kingston Trio.
This is one that you will only hear. I can say that. You will only hear this on History for Cocktail
We have done
Parties.
the research. We have Googled it. No one else has this story.
It's one of my favorites. So diehard REM fans might have wondered why REM sings a cover of Kingston Trio's In the Jungle. Which is out there. And I mean, it's
Kingston Trio. It's just not a band that you would have.
Yeah. That song people know, In the Jungle, The Lion Sleeps Tonight.
Velvet Underground, I get. Kingston Trio.
Yeah. Well,
kind of quirky.
I'm going to tell you why. And I believe that's the title. I don't think it's Lion Sleeps Tonight. Is the title of the song Lion Sleeps Tonight, or is it In the Jungle? Look that up for us.
Will our producer please get on that?
Yeah, exactly. And it's a really phenomenal cover. Since I think Michael Stipe may be the best vocalist that's ever stood in front of a microphone.
It is called The Lion Sleeps Tonight.
Okay, Lion Sleeps. I'm glad we corrected that. They sing a cover of Lion Sleeps Tonight. I think it's better than the original because Michael Stipe sings it. If you don't know the song, go check it out. It's amazing. If you're a diehard REM fan, you think, why is this on the B-side of the single, Sidewinder Sleeps Tonight? So, in law school, I had the privilege of taking an entertainment law class taught by Bertus Downs, who was REM's lawyer from the get-go and unofficial member the fifth member of REM.
Right.
And I think shared in the profits and royalties of all of the music. And so the band was putting together Automatic for the People. This was back in the 90s. And the law at that time was that you could sample 3 notes from another artist's song without having to pay any royalties, no problem, no permission needed. But you could not sample you could not use more than 5, or you could have 5 or more notes. That was not allowed. You'd have to get their permission, et cetera, and pay royalties and all of that.
Right.
REM gets their album all ready to release. Everything's printed, CDs are packaged, ready to ship. All this while, this is, he's working on the legal aspect of it. He hadn't gotten to hear all of the tracks yet, but he's just been doing the legal work. So he finally gets to hear it. I mean, they're like 2 days away from releasing this album. Burris gets to hear the album for the first time, and he notices, like, God, that's a Sidewinder song. That sounds very, very familiar. Why do I reckon, is that sampled from... And they said, "Oh yeah, we took that from The Lion Sleeps Tonight." And he said, "How many notes did you use?"
Wow.
They said, 4 notes." And he's like, "Oh crap," because that's right in the gray area there. 3 is okay, 5 is too many. 4,
Wow.
Exactly, that legal gray area. Oh crap moment. So, and this happens to lawyers all the time. Your client will go out and do something.
Yeah.
Not tell you about it
on this.
and then they come to you after there's a problem, and you find out about it later. The saying is that that lawyers are like mushrooms. They keep you in the dark and they feed you on the cow patties, so to speak.
Well done.
So anyway, there's millions of dollars in damages would have been due if it was determined that this was copyright infringement.
Right.
And it was too late. They would have had to ship. I mean, they could not. They had no choice. So rock in a hard place. CD's about to ship 2 days away. There's no way they can undo it.
I can't believe they looped Bertus Downs in at this late hour.
Classic law. That's how clients do it.
I'm
telling
ship this.
Yeah. And so somehow they reached the Kingston trio, like all of the various members, the three of them.
They all live together? Like
maybe
triple bunks?
Yeah, like the Partridge Family.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so in the middle of the night, and, without telling them what they'd done, they asked for permission. And they said, we're not sure we need it.
We're not sure we need it, but we just wanted to be polite and courteous and wanted to get permission from you,
And at first, the Kingston Trio thought they were making fun of, this new band.
Right.
Thought they were making fun of them or something like that, And so they said, yeah, you can do it and pay us a nominal sum, but you've got to sing a cover of our song on the album.
Wow.
Too late.
You're kidding.
The album's already done.
Side A and side B are
the whole CD is done, And
they just told them, like, we might use it, we might not.
Well, that's exactly. They didn't want to let on of what the situation actually was.
Oh, we can't record it on the B side.
So Bertus Downs must just be, an amazing lawyer. He's a hell of a professor. And I don't know how he talked his way out of this, but anyway, somehow the band, the Kingston Trio, they settled on, all right, you sing the cover, put it on the B side of the single. Sidewinder, Sleep
Back
Tonight.
When that was a thing.
Pay a nominal sum for permission and whatnot. That's the rest of the story. As Paul Harvey would say it, and hopefully the rest of the story is not copyrighted.
Sidewinder Sleeps Tonight is such a great story.
Yeah.
And I have to admit, I did not know it was influenced by The Lion Sleeps Tonight.
Lion Sleeps Tonight, yeah.
But after you told me that, I went back and listened to both side by side, and I was like, ooh, that is getting that Vanilla Ice,
right?
Uncomfortable David Bowie. It's a little too
4 notes,
a little too close
4
to
notes.
the bone there.
Yeah, indeed.
I doubt the Kingston Trio would have ever known of it had Bertus Downs not.
Yeah, but think about the consequences if they had figured it out.
Yeah, it would have been the royalties of that album would have been going straight to these 70-year-old men.
Yeah, exactly.
Would have been very excited.
Indeed.
Well, we're going to wrap up our episode there. Thank y'all for listening, reflecting on 1 year. Obviously, we are grateful to everybody who is checking us out, and we're thankful for the growth.
But we also want to, as we've done before, put out a call to action. If you love what you're hearing, please tell your friends, and if you've got any suggestions of stuff you want us to research and talk about, let us know. We'd love the feedback.
And my last plug will be our episodes are up. They are good, dense content and entertaining. So go back and listen to them, and even go back and listen to the REM ones. They're really good. You just got to turn the volume up a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. And then just one more thank you to our friend Charles Bonner.
Charles Bonner,
who was our sound engineer to get us where we are today.
Bravo.
All right.
Thank you all for listening.
This is History for Cocktail Parties with hack historians Thornton Kennedy and James Ottley.